Tomorrow night in Nottingham, British boxing gets another big domestic showdown as Leigh Wood and Josh Warrington run it back, this time up at super featherweight. For Wood, it's not just about settling a rivalry or proving the first result wasn't a fluke. He's talking about this fight as the moment he reminds the entire 130-pound division that he's still a serious threat, and he's going into it believing he can stop Josh Warrington again. What makes this rematch so compelling is that Wood isn't treating Warrington like just another name on the record. In the build-up, he's openly said that, looking at achievements and resume, Warrington is probably the best fighter he's ever shared a ring with. Two-time world champion at featherweight, big nights in Leeds, wars with elite opponents. On paper, Warrington has done a lot, but even with that level of respect, Wood is insisting that he has the formula to beat him, and not just on points. He's confident he ends it inside the distance for a second time. To understand how big tomorrow night is for Leigh Wood, you have to rewind a bit and look at the arc of his career. There was a point, not that long ago, when most people had written him off as a nearly man. After losing to Jazza Dickens, plenty of fans and pundits assumed that was his ceiling, a solid British fighter who'd fall short at the very top level. Instead of folding, he used that setback as fuel. From there, he pieced together a run that turned him into one of the most inspiring comeback figures in British boxing. He beat Rhys Mould to get his hands on the British featherweight title, then stepped up and outworked Kinsu to capture the WBA World Featherweight belt. If that wasn't enough, he followed that by producing one of the most memorable wins in recent UK boxing history, stopping Michael Conlan in a dramatic fight that swung back and forth before it found the finish. 3 huge wins in a row transformed him from an overlooked contender into the Sheriff of Nottingham, the man carrying the flag for his city at world level. Like so many good reigns, his time at the top didn't last forever. Mexican puncher Mauricio Lara, a man Josh Warrington knows all too well, came over and ripped the title away with the kind of heavy, ruthless power that has made him feared at 126. A lot of fighters don't come back from that kind of defeat, especially when they're already into their 30s. Wood did something different. He signed for the rematch almost immediately, just 3 months later. Instead of easing back in, he went straight back in with Lara and completely flipped the script. This time he boxed with discipline, controlled the distance, and neutralized the danger. By the final bell, there was no doubt. He had outclassed El Bronco and reclaimed his place as a world champion. That result said a lot about who Leigh Wood is when his back is against the wall. That set the stage for a fight that British fans have been calling for over and over, a grudge match with Josh Warrington. The build-up to that first meeting carried a real edge. Warrington, the Leeds warrior, had his own history with Mauricio Lara and had been known for his ferocious, high-output style and passionate fan base. The idea of Nottingham versus Leeds, Wood versus Warrington, had the feel of a domestic rivalry that just had to happen. When they finally met, the fight delivered drama, even if it wasn't going the way we wanted early on. Warrington started fast, as he often does, swarming forward, throwing combinations and making it messy on the inside. Through the early rounds, the judges had him building a lead on the scorecards. Wood looked like he was being outworked and out of rhythm. Then came the turning point. In the 7th round, Wood produced the kind of momentum-shifting moment he's become known for. He put together a brilliant, precise combination that crashed through Warrington's defenses and badly hurt him. Sensing his chance, Wood went in for the finish. Referee Michael Alexander decided he had seen enough and waved the fight off. It was a dramatic end, but one that left Warrington and his supporters frustrated, feeling the stoppage was too quick. That added even more tension to a rivalry that already had plenty. After that win, Wood chose to vacate his WBA featherweight belt. Making 126 pounds consistently at his age and size had become a big strain, and he decided it was time to move up to super featherweight. His first outing at 130 pounds, though, didn't go the way he had hoped. In his debut at the new weight, he ran into Belfast's Anthony Cacase, an awkward, skilled operator who was coming off a win over Warrington himself in his previous fight. Cacase turned out to be a nightmare introduction to the division. He used his height, southpaw stance, and experience to cause with problems, and by the end of the night, Wood had come up short. It was a reminder that moving up in weight doesn't automatically mean you're going to be the bigger, stronger man controlling everything. The super feather division has its own sharks, and Kake showed he's one of them. That brings us right back to tomorrow night. Now Wood and Warrington are meeting again, but this time both as super featherweights. The rivalry is intact, the history is there, and the stakes are high for both men. Speaking to Boxing News and Fight Week, Wood made it clear that this camp has gone well. He said everything that needed to be done has been done, and that he feels more settled and confident coming into this one than he did ahead of the Kakes bout. One of the points he highlighted is the difference in styles between Anthony Kakes and Josh Warrington. In his view, those stylistic contrasts swing things in his favor. Kakes is tall, tricky, and awkward, with style that can be hard to look good against. Warrington, on the other hand, is more straightforward in his approach. High work rate pressure, volume punching, and physicality. That kind of style is dangerous, but it's also more familiar and, for some fighters, easier to prepare for. Wood has also spoken honestly about something a lot of fans have noticed. The needle between him and Warrington seems to bring out something extra in him. The animosity, the back and forth, the feeling that there is something personal on the line. He's admitted that he didn't fully realize before how much that can sharpen him mentally. For some boxers, bad blood is a distraction. For Wood, it appears to be a motivator. The big unknown he's talked about is the weight factor. On paper, it looks like he should be the naturally bigger, stronger man at 130, having struggled at featherweight for a long time. But he's been honest enough to say he doesn't know how hard it was for Warrington to make 126 in the past. So he can't be sure if he'll definitely have an advantage there. What he does know is what his own experience was like draining down to featherweight. It took a toll. Now, up at super featherweight, he's expecting to feel fresher and perform better on fight night, with more in the tank late in the fight. Despite all the pushing and shoving, the words exchanged and the bitterness after the stoppage in their first bout, there's still a core of mutual respect between these two. Both are two-time world champions at 126 pounds. Both have been through hard fights, big nights, and career-threatening setbacks. They understand what it takes to get to the top and to come back when people doubt you. That's why it mattered when Wood acknowledged Warrington's quality, when he looked at the list of names he's fought, and said that, on paper, Warrington is probably the best opponent he's faced. That wasn't empty talk. At the same time, he's equally clear that the first fight taught him a lot. He's talked about key adjustments he knows he has to make this time. He's not spelling them out publicly. He's not about to hand over his game plan, but he's described the changes as very obvious to him. Knowing what needs to be done doesn't mean it will be easy to execute. But from his side, there's a sense that the picture is clearer now, away from immediate clash. There's another thread that always follows Leigh Wood around. The dream of fighting at the City Ground, the home of Nottingham Forest, the club he loves. Boxing under the floodlights in front of tens of thousands of fans by the River Trent has been his big fantasy venue for years. When asked if that dream is still alive, he answered with a mix of hope and realism. He explained that to make a City Ground fight happen, you need more than just desire. You need the right opponent, the right timing, and, frankly, some luck. He's had moments where one piece of the puzzle was there, but another was missing. A belt here, but not the right dance partner. A big potential rival, but not the right time of year. At this stage of his career, he's not sure if the stars will ever fully align for that to happen. You can hear in his words that he hasn't completely given up on it, but he knows it might remain the one big what if of his time in the sport. For now, though, he's not looking past Warrington. His focus is on tomorrow night at the Motor Point Arena, and he isn't shy about how he thinks it goes. He's thanked his supporters for turning out again and again, and then laid down a clear marker. He believes he wins this fight inside the distance, and faster than he did the first time. Considering he stopped Warrington in 7 in their first encounter, that's a bold prediction. It suggests he's not planning to ease his way into this rematch. He wants to make a statement. From Warrington's perspective, this is a chance at redemption. He was leading on the cards in their first fight before everything was taken away in a single devastating flurry. He felt robbed by the stoppage and has been waiting for the opportunity to set things straight. Now he's got it, and he'll come into Nottingham determined to silence the crowd and flip the script. Stylistically, it's a fascinating matchup. Wood is a heavier puncher, the man who can change a fight with one clean shot, as we've seen against Conlon and Warrington himself. He's also more comfortable boxing at mid-range, picking his moments. Warrington thrives on chaos, high volume, swarming pressure, making it rough and uncomfortable. At featherweight, that pressure broke plenty of opponents. At super featherweight, the question is whether that style still has the same effect, and whether his chin and engine hold up if Wood's power carries up with him. On the undercard, there's another significant domestic clash, with Ishmael Davis and Bilal Fawaz squaring off for the British super welterweight title. That adds another layer of national interest to Bill, but there's no doubt what the main event is. Wood versus Warrington 2 is the fight that will have fans tuned in, not just in Nottingham and Leeds, but all over the UK. So, tomorrow night at the Motorpoint Arena, a lot of questions get answered. Can Leigh Wood prove that the move to super featherweight can still lead to big wins and maybe another run at world honors? Can Josh Warrington show that he's not a spent force and that the first fight's end was an unfair snapshot rather than the full truth? And does Wood deliver on his promise of a quicker stoppage this time around? Let me know how you see it playing out. Do you think Wood backs up his words and closes the show earlier than the 7th? Or are you expecting Warrington to use a high-energy style and his own championship experience to drag this into deep waters and flip the script? Either way, British boxing fans are getting another high-stakes rematch with real history behind it. And by the end of Saturday night, we'll have a much clearer picture of where